and they would do the streaming and they would play from home and everything. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. They can do that. I'm so happy. I don't have to figure out how to make that happen.
Right. Mm.
But it works. Yeah.
I thought this would be fun, and it has been fun. Like the conversations are really, and I've only had like two.
Yeah.
But the first week, I couldn't get it to stream. It kept kicking me off of TikTok, and I was like, well, that was unfortunate. Then the second one I had, her internet kept kicking her off, and I was like, well, we'll do what we can. So
third time's the charm.
That's right. That's right. And so so the live stream is going live, but I will say that for people to comment and interact, the best way will be for them to go to YouTube, because that one has been a no fail. YouTube has not failed me one time, and that's where people can leave comments or ask questions while we're live. So if anybody is already listening, YouTube is probably your best bet. It's streaming at J Car Writes. And so anyway, it's good times.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, well, it is 8 o'clock my time, and so that means that we are live, and this is the Connected Conversations for Creatives podcast live. And as you have heard, if you've been listening, that there's no telling what's going to happen this evening. But I'm so glad that Kyle Shoop has decided to join me again and be one of the guinea pigs for this process, because he's a brave soul. That's all I can say.
And should I like give a disclaimer that half my jokes aren't going to land? Okay. I'm really not funny. That's the benefit to being an author, is you can rewrite and reword something over and over and over. Right.
And listen, I am not a conversationalist by nature. That is not me. And so there are times where we'll just look at each other and I'll just be like, your turn, because I got nothing. We're just going to hang out and see what happens. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay, so I met you through the podcast originally. You were a guest on the podcast, but your episode doesn't actually air until like the spring, I think it was. It's going to be like well into the spring. And I was like, no, people need to know who you are before then. So let's tell people who you are and why you were on the podcast in the first place.
Yeah, so I am an author of 8 novels, which my wife would probably say is 7 or 8 novels too many, because it takes so much time, right? No, but I'm an author of novels. I've got 8 novels, and I just love talking creativity in general, whether it is about writing novels or recording music. You can tell with the guitars behind me. You know, I find a creative outlet in general is just so interesting to me. What people do, what motivates them, ticks them, what their current works are. But yeah, so I'm an author at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. Now, is author your full-time job?
No. I am also an attorney. And I used to be a litigator. Now I'm not in court anymore. Now I deal more with the contract side of things.
Nice. That's a nice big change, going from having to deal with humans to paper.
Yeah. It just allowed for more balance, which was out of whack because I like to spend my nights writing. So, you know, it's hard to, but at the same time, I mean, like, I love writing, so that doesn't feel like I have 2 jobs. But I don't know about you, you have to treat it like a job, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, yeah, it's hard to, I've known a lot of people that want to just write and they do the first page and you got to keep going, you know, and it takes that treating it like a job for me to get it done. So.
Oh, for sure. Is the goal ever to be full-time author, or do you like your other job, your day job, better?
Honestly, I don't think I could. I mean, I've written so much that to me it feels like I have a second job, but I love the idea of a yin to yang kind of approach. Like, I need something to want to escape to go write. Like, maybe I'm just fearful that if I didn't have a day job or other responsibilities, that I wouldn't have something sparking that creativity.
Ooh, you know? Interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
So
nice. Okay, so you write books for fun and for escape, but you don't write just one genre of book. Like your brain is creative enough that it takes you here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, and is gonna take me in a different direction here in a little bit, but, the yes, my goal is to go where the story intrigues me. That's not often the most, like, yeah, a lot of people say find one genre and figure out the equation and write to that, and I could never do that, right? It will show in my writing. But even then, I mean, like as we talked about before, I mean, I write my my last 5 novels were in a romance series, but every book was so different, right? Some of them were more rom-com, some of them were more literary fiction. My last one was a historical romance. So that was intriguing to me, by the way, to see, like, I think it's very motivating too to think about how love can manifest in such a wide range of different stories. It doesn't need to be a cut and paste type structure. You can find a lot of different ways to express just compelling love
Yeah.
stories. So,
Oh yeah, and I'm the same way. Like I've gone romantic suspense, but then there's also the whole I've got childhood best friends, and then there's a whole nother storyline that I'm working on where it's like who am I even in this world kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, and I can't handle a cookie cutter. I don't do well with unless I'm making cookies. That's the only time I want to use a cookie cutter. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah,
okay, then now I got to ask, pause. What's your favorite kind of cookie?
snickerdoodles, hands down, snickerdoodles. Those are my favorite.
That's a good one,
Yep.
especially in the fall, but
Yes.
really anytime, I guess.
Anytime. But they are a booger to make. They're very time consuming to make, and I don't love it. So,
Yeah. Huh.
but I make really good snickerdoodles. Yep. What about you? What's your favorite cookie?
Favorite cookie is got to be just straight up cookie dough.
Any flavor?
Don't even bake that sucker.
I hear that.
If you're too impatient or just, yeah.
I'm with you. That's my favorite flavor of ice cream is cookie dough ice cream. I saw a TikTok the other day where somebody was saying they make this ready to eat edible cookie dough, and it was like $5 for like one of these small things, or you could buy a 2-pound roll of cookie dough for $3. And I was like, that's a no brainer. Like, why would you get the safe to eat when?
Okay. Now, question for you, because out where I live, I'm here in Utah. There's a type of business that's kind of sparked up. They sell cookie dough for you to eat, but it's supposedly safe. I don't know the ins and outs. Is that a thing out by where you're at too, or is it just
Yes, so I'm in Alabama, and we actually had one open just before COVID. It opened in our downtown area. And have you had it yet? Have you tried it?
yeah, it's not the same, but it's still cookie dough, you
It
know?
is, but it's like it wants to be cookie dough, but it's not. And so I'm still gonna go buy the Nestle Toll house roll of cookie dough with the spoon and just go at it. Like 40 years later, I'm still kicking. I'm good. It hadn't hurt me yet.
I had a novel which it was a taste of love, right? Because each of my novels is around one of the five senses. And so I had when I was writing A Taste of Love, part of me was like, I can't just write a novel and pretend I'm good at cooking. And so I did a bunch of research with my kids. We bake like some stuff, and I have a lot of respect for people that do that, like they're into baking. You know, baking's not my thing. But I gained a lot of respect for people that could do that.
Before I started writing books for my job, I owned a bakery, and baking is one of my favorite things in the world to do.
Really, you owned a bakery.
I did. I did. We were Green Acres Bakery because the street that we live on is Green Acres Drive, and I started baking cookies for. Now, what's really funny is I was not a baker until I became an adult, well into adulthood. I
Okay.
actually was banned from the kitchen when I was a teenager because I would set fires in the oven on accident. Like it was never on purpose, but so it was really never one of those things that anybody ever thought would happen. But I I saw a recipe for oatmeal cream pies, and I was like, "Ooh, that sounds good," because I don't like Little Debbie oatmeal cream pies. Like that is gross. But the recipe, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds good." And then I did it. I made them myself, but then I changed a few things because I can't stick to a recipe ever. And I had somebody say, "Hey, will you make me some of those?" And it just kind of snowballed from there. And next thing you know, we were doing festivals and that kind of thing. And but then it just got so expensive. We actually, this was the first year that I kind of just completely shut the bakery down because it was just too expensive to keep going.
Okay, let me ask you, because we talk about creativity and you not being able to stick to recipe. That's a real thing. Or do you find creativity in baking is a real thing?
Mhm. Absolutely, and that's one of my, favorite ways to express creativity, but,
Right.
like, people are like, "Oh, do you decorate cakes?" I'm like, "Heck no, that is not the creativity that I have." I can't do cookies, I don't do cakes, but I can bake, and I can tweak things well enough to make them my own, and they're always better than what you would get if you followed the recipe. Yeah. So, yeah, it's absolutely creativity.
Yeah. How do you
Mhm.
compare your creativity in baking versus that of writing? It's a very like vague question, but I'm curious.
But I get it because and it goes back to what we were just saying is that I don't follow cookie cutter recipes with my writing either. Like the books that I like to read, I'll read a series of books because I want to know what happens to the characters, but then I finish it and I'm like, the same exact thing happened in every story. They just wore different clothes, It was like the same exact thing every time I read it. And I was like, huh, but that's not how I write. I'm like, well, my characters wouldn't do that. They don't fit into molds. And a lot of times people don't appreciate that as much at first because that was one of the major comments that I got in reviews when people read my first book. They were like, it doesn't really fit a mold. Like I wasn't expecting anything to happen that actually happened. And I was like, well, I guess that works for me because I'm not going to
That's
feed
a
you this
that's a
mold.
compliment in my opinion. When I switched from writing, so my first three were middle grade fantasy, and I had kind of had some dialogue back and forth with a romance author when I was only writing fantasy, only ever intended to write fantasy. And when I felt this spark to switch to these love stories, this romance, I actually reached out to this author. I won't say who it was. I have a lot of respect for this author, but I still do, and I always will. I asked for some advice and was kind of surprised that this person's advice back was there are tropes, which I totally get. And then here is kind of the formula
Mhm,
for
mhm.
things. And I read through the formula and I took it with a grain of salt. But I always strive for more than that. Isn't it the same thing when you watch a movie? You ever watch a movie and you're like, oh, I know how this is gonna end. Maybe we do this more as writers, right? We tend to analyze the movie a little bit differently. But you watch a movie and you think, "Oh, I see where this is going," but then it goes in a different way that's better, and it catches you off guard,
Yes,
and then you're impressed by something. And to me, I'm like, that's what I hope to do with my novels. I want to like surprise myself,
yes.
you know.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. I'm the same way. Like, if I can predict it, which and it probably drives my husband crazy. I've never actually asked him, but we'll be sitting on the couch, and I'll be like, "Well, they did it," or, "This is gonna happen," because, that's what every formula because that's what it is, it's formulaic. It's like there is an outline. So that leads me to ask, are you a plotter or a pantser? Like, are you a discovery writer, like, it just kinda happens, or do you plan out your books?
yeah. First off, I want to make it clear I do wear pants. Okay.
Yes, that's a discovery writer is why I changed the
That's
way I
low hanging fruit, right? Right. I do wear pants. I am like middle ground, and what I mean by that is like when I decide I want to write a novel, I know points A and generally point Z, and I know a couple other points, point M and Q along the way. And but to me, what drives me is that feeling of getting from point to point and thinking I have an idea, but then during the writing process, it develops into something different and better than I anticipated. Honestly, that is a feeling that is so hard to describe and is so much more enjoyable than I can even put into words. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and so that's why I was wondering, like, if if people outline, if they are plotters and they know this, and this, if it's easier to fall into the formula, whereas like I don't stick to an outline. I can't. I have tried it. Like I cannot because it changes too much in my head. And so I wonder if that's why like recipes and formulas and outlines just don't work for me. Like I just can't do it.
Well, and you're still live, so you obviously haven't baked anything that's like you haven't gotten in too much trouble yet. I will share this. So, and by the way, on my these are my novels back here, but I don't know if you can see if they're in frame or not. But I will share a quick kind of background story about how I got to write that way. So there's one of my novels I'll pull out. This is the second in that middle grade fantasy trilogy right
Mhm.
here, which so being a trilogy, when I found it very difficult to like, I had to plan more, right? Because I'm not just planning that book, I'm planning with the last book and how the middle book would fit into that, feel like a self contained story, but also hit certain plot points, right?
Mhm.
And so um, I had done a ton of outlining for the novel
Right.
in terms of how like so it's Asa and the Seven Ancient Wonders is that book. That's the middle of the three. And my main character is Asa, and he was going to travel to each of the seven ancient wonders. And I'm totally oversimplifying the plot, right? But those seven ancient wonders from the real world, right? The Pyramid of Giza. Yeah, I can name them all, but I won't get into that. But anyways, Lighthouse of Alexandria, all those were found within his wizard world. And I had plotted out about how that would match up in names of characters based on that and everything. And then I moved and I couldn't find that paper anymore. This was back before people used Google Docs in the clouds. I'm dating myself, telling you how old I am. Like this is probably back in like 2000. Anyways, I won't go that far back. And and I had lost the paper, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" And but I still wanted to write the novel, so I just went for it, and I just went for it with writing page by page by page, and just think about it afresh. And it became much different than I thought, and I loved it much better. And then guess what? After the book was done, I found that paper, and I looked back at it, and I thought, I mean, this would have worked, but I like what I did way better than that. And so that kind of taught me like if I plan things out too long, it needs to develop as you write it. But also I think there's a lot of people that kind of they plan instead of write. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They use plan
Yeah.
to decide. So
Yes,
yeah.
I actually had a conversation with a lady who was like, "Yeah, I've been working on my book for a while now." And I was like, "What's a while?" And she's like, "10 years." And I was like, "Why isn't it published?" Like, "Well, I've rewritten it like 4 times." I'm like, "I think we're thinking too hard about this. Like,
Yeah.
you're thinking way too hard because if you have a story and you spit it out the first time, great. Let's get it out there, put it with an editor, and then start on your next one because clearly you have too many ideas going on in your head, like,
I see a comment says checklist yes, outlines nope, and that's great. I tend to write my checklist, by the way, because we all get interrupted with real life or
yes,
maybe writer fatigue while writing, and we know where it's going to go. We're on the precipice of writing it, but we just need to end writing. And so I tend to create kind of a bullet point checklist at the end of my document. I'm still old school. I know there's a lot of different tools out there. I still use Word. Okay.
yeah,
And it just works for me. It's kind of like Jerry Seinfeld. I think it's Seinfeld. Yeah, Seinfeld still uses yellow legal pads and writes out all of his jokes. He just found his method. That's my method.
yes. I
And
love
at
it.
the very end, when I stop, I'll put that checklist. But my favorite thing is picking it back up the next day, having ruminated on things, looking at things, and said, "Whoa, no, 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 no. That would have been. I know something better now."
Yes, absolutely. And I use a Word document. I was over here digging through my pile of stuff. This is for the book that comes out in February. This is my timeline of how I'm keeping up with what happens when, or the book that I'm currently working on. I have each chapter. This is what I think might happen in the chapter, but it's not an outline as much as it is like, this was an idea I had while I was writing this chapter. Will it look the same when all is said and done? No, it will look nothing like that, but it's a good start.
Here's something I find even more important than checklists of ideas for a chapter or the story. I think a checklist, and I do this, a checklist of something I just wrote that needs to pay off or come up again later. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh yeah. The notes pages that I have.
To mention this, later on, and that's the most important thing.
Yes, I agree. And I think some people call it like their Bible for their book or whatever, because it's like the reference point for your characters' names and that kind of thing. And mine is not organized at all, which is so funny to me because I am a very organized person, like multiple planners for every aspect of my life kind of thing. But when I write, it is all just one big happy document, and I will just control F and find what I'm looking for. I'm like, what was the name of? Because I know the keyword of what I was looking for. And so I can't, there are too many other details and it bogs me down. And I think, oh my gosh, that's too much information in one place. And so it all just has to, boop, I can't, it's all right here. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the guitars and the music, because with your books, you did, and you mentioned that your romance books specifically are all based on the different senses. And so, and one of them, there's music involved. And so let's talk about the music.
Yeah, you bet. Two of them actually have music. So there's the Sound of Love. I won't pull them out. Yeah. So each book is built around one of the senses: the sound of love, the sight of love, the touch of love. You get a feeling for it. The first one I wrote is the sound of love, and it got to the point in the story where, well, okay, so one of the main characters is a singer-songwriter. And it got to the point in the story where I decided I need to write lyrics into the book for his songs. And it didn't immediately come to me. You would think I'm smart enough to be like, oh, I've been writing and recording music for years, just use your own songs. It didn't come that fast. It took a couple of weeks actually for it to hit me. I remember being in the car and being like, I got a song already for this situation. And so I wrote those in. I'd been recording and writing music as a hobby. I'm not like, on the radio, right? But I consider myself an indie musician. I'd been writing and recording since I was 18, right? That means it's only been like 3-4 years.
Right, not long at all.
Yeah. At the time I was writing that book, it'd been about 15 years that I'd been doing it. And so as I would get to the points of the story where I would need songs, I took an honest look at, do I already have a song? And I did. And so what I ended up doing was writing the lyrics out in the novel and then linking to it in the ebooks with a hyperlink. People can just, if you have the ebook, you can just hit the hyperlink where the lyrics are, and it takes you Spotify or whatever these, Apple Music or YouTube, I think, as well. And you can actually listen to my songs, right? And I love that. I love the idea of taking something and bringing it alive, right? I'm not going to say my songs or, some of the songs, especially the ones at the beginning of the book, were like back from when I was like 19 years old. Like they're old. They're not going to sound as great, but, my heart was in it, and the music's there. As the songs of the book keep going, the later ones, actually, it just worked out that they were more recent songs that I had written.
That's wild.
So I kind of tell people, stick with the music to the end, because those are the newer songs that hopefully sound the best. But and then on like Spotify and everywhere, the artist name is Guy Plus Guitar, actually plus sign Guy Plus Guitar, because that is what the songwriter in the book goes by, is Guy Plus Guitar. And so I put all those songs from the album or from the book into an album, And the book is called The Sound of Love, and then the soundtrack is The Soundtrack of Love. And it just fit right in. It was kind of a cool thing. Anyway, so I'm talking a lot, I know that, but let me flash forward. So my last book that has come out, it's called The Touch of Love. Music was a heavy part of it, because there was one song that I wrote back again when I was like 19 that has just stayed with me over the years. Like, it just, in my opinion, has gotten better with age. Like, I play it live now differently than I did back then, and I just love it. And it's a love letter from a guy that's out at war back home to his love. And I always wanted to write a historical romance, and so naturally I put that in, and it plays a seminal part in the novel. It's a letter that is written to the main character. So
So
yeah.
when you're writing lyrics to these songs that you've put in your books, and some of them, you wrote, like you said before you were writing the book, do you like get into your character's mind and you're like, okay, this is how this character would say these things, and it becomes a song from their point of view, or is it you writing a song that just so happen fits with your character?
All of my songs were written before the books,
All of them.
all of them.
Wow.
However, I went back, and this was really hard, like technologically, because like, anyways, I went back and found the initial files I had recorded them on, like 15 years or 10 years ago, or like it spans 15 years all the way up to like a year before the book started writing. But luckily I had kept those hard drives and everything, and I'd say maybe like 5% of the lyrics I rewrote to fit the specifics of the plot.
That's
Right.
wild. That's wild. Like,
It
what are
was
the
it was
chances?
crazy. It
Yeah.
was like when this hit me and how well the lyrics fit in to this story that was completely unrelated, just a bunch of songs I had written, within the last 15 years. It was weird. It was almost like I had known that I would one day write a novel, but I didn't. I had no
Right.
idea, you know? It was like, it's the type of coincidence that someone builds into a movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. I mean, it kind of makes you go, there's some sort of divine intervention here. Like, it was just kind of a moment.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So,
cool. Okay. So do you prefer writing the music to your lyrics or the lyrics to your music?
um, I prefer writing. So, what happens typically when writing a song is there's something that starts out that just, I feel the rhythm with words, and then I build on that, right? So it's almost like the first step is the lyrics with how I would sing them come to me. And then the next step is to build the music around that, right? But it's not as though I can't do a good job of like writing something out on, lyrics out and then finding a melody that goes with that. It doesn't work that way, right? So,
Yeah. I in my the book that comes out in February, it revolves around a guy who he lives out his dream to become a country music star. And there are a lot of original songs that I have written to go with that, but I don't write music. And so I'm like, I can't even hear in my head how it would go. So it's more like really fancy poetry that you could put to music if you wanted to. And so I have asked multiple people, I'm like, hey, music, make it happen. Can we work together? And they're like, I don't know. It's really, and so some people are really weird about putting music to other people's lyrics. And some people, I just can't put
it's
music.
hard. It's
Yeah.
hard
Like,
because, like, okay, here's what I've learned about creativity and consumption of books versus music. Books, people will finish a book even if they don't like it.
yeah,
Music, people judge in the first 5 seconds.
for
And
sure.
even if they hear one song, they judge you as an artist. All your songs within like 5 to 10 seconds,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah.
So the idea of writing music that would, I could get why they would like say, that's a tough thing for me to do, because they might put their heart and time into it and you'd be like, that sucks, that's not what I want. Sucks,
Yeah.
not as in bad music, but that doesn't
It's not
fit
what,
looking
yeah,
for.
exactly. Oh yeah, because I'm specifically like it's 90s country, right? It happens like in the 90s, early 2000s, which has a very specific sound to it, and
Yeah.
that's not what people are doing right now. And I'm like, no, I need somebody who will go retro for me. Let's go retro. Because the 90s are indeed retro at the moment.
No,
So
don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. I need to find an old guy my age to write a song.
and I would love to see 90s country make a comeback because I am a huge fan of 90s country. Like if it's not 90s country, I don't want it. But
Yeah.
because I just don't see new country. Yeah.
You're from the South, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. As a matter of fact, I was not allowed to listen to country music because it had such negative messages in it. And I was like, guess how I'm rebelling? I mean, that was definitely not the worst way I rebelled, but
Right.
yep. So do you want to play one of your songs?
Sure. Yeah. Pick a guitar and I'll play it. No, I'm just kidding. I have the main guitar. So by the way, these three guitars I call my three amigos. Right.
Nice.
Come on, everybody likes three amigos.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't know which one is Ned, Lucky. What's the third one? But anyways, yeah. So these are my three amigos. So
I hear that teamwork makes the dream work. So that's
yeah, they are the same. I love these. These are my kids, my babies.
love it.
Just don't tell my real kids. I just said that. You don't know that. Okay.
It's better than having a favorite kid. I mean, honestly.
Well, that just depends on the day, right?
I only have one, so
Okay, so can you hear me okay?
yep.
I don't think I've done this before. So this is the first time.
Excellent.
This is kind of cool. Pretty
Bring
awesome.
it on.
Should I introduce the song or just play it?
Sure.
What do you want?
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
Okay. So like I said, the most recent book that I released is The Touch of Love. And there was one song that I wrote when I was like 19 that stayed with me, and that's what I'm going to play. It is called P.S. Did I Mention I Love You? And again, this is like one whole letter written from a guy that's out at war to the woman he loves back home. So. Dear Catherine, time flies by and you're still far away. I write this letter, but words can't put on a page the way I feel. 'Cause here I am, the night broken, I'm drinking whiskey, weighing out my days. And in this war, I die for you. And I remember the days and nights I spent with you in my arms. But when I look back, those memories seem much too far away. 'Cause here I am, the night broken, I'm drinking whiskey, weighing out my days. And in this war, I die for you. 'Cause in this war, I die for you. In this war, I die for you. Oh, take me back to a better place where the bombs don't drop and I can see your face. Take me back to frame of mind where you are mine. 'Cause in special. I love you.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks. That was
Very
fun.
cool.
I don't think
Yeah.
I, yeah, I haven't done something like that before. That's kind of cool.
Well, there's a whole internet out there that would allow you to do it again and again. That's so great. The guitar is one of those instruments that I have never been able to pick up and master. I would love it. That would be amazing, but that's just not for me. So I'm always envious when other people can just pick it up and be like, ta-da! So good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes a lot of. It's kind of like writing, right? You ever? It's like you got to write the first page, and it's the same thing with like learning any instrument, guitar or whatever. Writing your own music, it's like your first thing you write. Let's just be honest, is probably not going to be very good. Same thing with music,
Oh yeah.
right? Keep going, keep going. I remember back when I was in college, I used to practice, and I was like still really beginner level learning. And I remember one morning I woke up and I heard one of my roommates talking to another roommate and is like, he should just give up. He's terrible. Right? I totally eavesdropped and heard that. Now,
Oh,
my other roommate was awesome and he's still my friend this day because he stuck up for me. He was like, dude,
oh,
everybody has to learn from beginning, right? So,
seriously.
anyways,
That's awesome. And good for you for like being able to just continue because some people get that kind of feedback and that's it. Like that's the end, and my kid is one of those people that I I hate it for her because one word of criticism, even if it's supposed to be helpful, and she shuts down. And so we've had to work through some of those things where I'm like, hey, criticism is good. It comes when coming from the right place, it can help you do better. So she has been playing the piano for several years and she's so great. If she would just practice more, like she would be amazing.
mm,
But it takes time and effort to sit down and practice, which is not what she wants to do because there are other things vying for her attention. But she played in church Sunday and she
mm.
did such a phenomenal job. But at the same time, she finished and she goes, I would really like to practice more so that I can do better next time. And I was like, whoo, like there's hope.
How old is she?
She's 14.
Wow, to hear that from 14, that's so cool.
I was
Go
like, it was amazing. So anyway, but that was the thing that I would say those kinds of things. I'd be like, hey, if you practiced and practice is good because I hated practicing, but music was so natural for me that I
uh,
didn't have to practice. But piano, you can only go so far if you don't practice. It's kind of like, well, I'm stuck here in this one place. And so
yeah,
anyway, so to hear her actually come to the realization that practice might be okay.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe.
I
So
think sometimes I look back at how, when I was learning years ago and moments like that with my roommate, I kind of wonder, was spite a very strong emotion for me? Maybe me hearing him kind of be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna actually learn to play then and show you,
that's right. And
That's
you
the
know
thing,
what? Whatever
being
motivates you,
what was that?
whatever motivates you, whatever gets
It's
you there.
true. That's the thing, being an author, I don't think like we talk about enough though, is like we write all emotions. We write on a wide palette of colors, right? And we have to be able to understand, empathize, and put ourselves in the position of those emotions and be able to control them. So when we're done writing, whatever the scene is, we don't let that carry into our personal lives, hopefully,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but yes, spite must have been a big motivator for me back then.
And for real, and if that same criticism was, if somebody was to say, oh, that wasn't great, let's keep trying, that would come across so differently. So when we give feedback, maybe we should also learn, on the flip side of things, to give our feedback a little more gracefully. Because I have seen a lot of people, there's a certain book that came out, it was the second book of a series, and people have just gone mad about their reviews and they took it a little personal because the author refused to make a statement on a certain thing that was going on, and so they attacked the author. But I'm thinking, you know what, we could have just been a little more graceful and let her exist as who she was made to be and who she is, and just kept your opinions to yourself, and focus on the work and how it could be made better. But anyway,
That's
I
always a tap dance,
yeah, yeah,
because but you can say about more than just authors. You can say about movies, actors,
yeah,
musicians, where you don't agree with somebody's individual, who whatever they've done, whoever they are, type stuff, but yet their work, where does that cross over between looking at the work, which might not have been at all motivated by, their
yeah,
personal life, anyways.
yeah. So
So when
giving
you write, where does your personal life intersect with your writing?
it's really funny because I am a huge proponent of keeping things very separate,
Yeah.
um, which I didn't always.
Hmm.
And I had a really bad experience probably about 3 years ago, where somebody, literally, it was a guy I went to high school with. We were not friends. And so so that was the only connection we had on Facebook. But because of my personal opinions that I had stated online, which I don't do very often anymore for this reason, he came on and blasted our bakery and was like, well, this
Uh,
person has these beliefs, and because of that, you shouldn't, use. And I was just like, first of all, excuse
mhm.
me. I did this on my own, whereas you went to school on daddy's money. No offense to anybody who did that, but I was like, this is my business. Back
Yeah.
up. But so yeah, I learned through experience that there's if you're going to have a business, or you are your business, or you are your brand, you have to be so careful on letting those lines blur and cross. And so I just don't anymore if I can help it.
Yeah. It's, yes. It's, as an author, because I try and keep mine separate as well. But I mean, at some point, you write what you know,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like in The Touch of Love, there's a character in there that had something very difficult, traumatic happen to him, and it's because I had experience with that. It's not at all me or my story, but you write around what you know. You know.
Yeah, and I think, why do we let that kind of bleed over into even if the author doesn't. Sorry, my dogs are barking right outside my window here. But why do we let the author's work even? So let's say I wanted to write a diverse character of sorts. Well, I
Mhm.
am myself not a diverse
Yeah.
person, as you can see. But all of a sudden, like, I get blowback, or I would get pushback from people who are like, well, you don't know that life. You are not a diverse person. You don't have the right to write about a diverse person. And so, like, where's that line there? I don't know. It's a whole scary world that sometimes I have to think really long and hard before I put something in writing, because I'm scared.
Jen, it's interesting because I get that asked, because so the 5 books in my series, the main characters, now obviously there's a main man and a main woman, right? But the main character, whose perspective it's really, whose story it really is, I alternate between a female, a male, female, male, and then the last
Mhm.
one it's dual timeline, so there's one of each. And so I've written with a main character being female in romance. And some of the biggest compliments I've had was, you did a great job, right? I know
Yeah.
there's going to be somebody saying I, didn't do a good job. Like, everybody has a different opinion, right? And they're entitled to their opinions. But yeah, it's a real thing of, where, how to handle that. I was lucky enough. The first one I wrote with a main female, my wife had read, and she said, "I'm going to give you some advice. The main character, your female, can't do that." I don't even remember what it was, and it wasn't anything terrible or
Yeah.
offensive or anything. She was just like, "Just so you know, it could, you should change that." Oh, thank you. I just hadn't thought of that, right? So maybe I'm lucky because I do have a female
Right.
perspective, at least, giving it a read and would let me know if I'm way off track. But yeah, it's interesting. I will say this, in my books, um, as I write certain characters, there are different demographics. I very rarely say that though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be thinking this person is this way or that way. One of them I even had on the spectrum, but I never said it, you know? And it's interesting. I've got some responses saying, "Hey, was that character on the spectrum? Because I felt it." And I was like, "Thank you. That's
Yep.
you picked up on something I never said." Right. Even so much, my main character in the Asa trilogy, that fantasy series, he's a lefty. Now I did that intentionally because I'm a lefty, right? To represent. I never come out and say he's a lefty or he's holding a wand with the left hand. But if you pick up on like the way things happen, you'd be like, he's left-handed, right? I've had some lefties reach out and be like, yeah, is he? It doesn't really matter that he's left-handed, right? But it's like, I'm creating a world. I'm going to, you know.
Way to include representation in your book. That's hilarious. I'm the only right-handed person in my family. Everybody else is a lefty, so I'm the oddball.
Really?
I know, isn't that crazy?
And you're creative and you're right. Okay. I've always been interested in like, is there a correlation between lefty and creative or what? I have no idea.
So we can talk psychology if you want to, since that is kind of my world of expertise. But so left-handed people are usually right-brained. Like their right brain is a little more controlling of their everything, which right brain is usually your more creative, your more, artsy kind of thing. But my two lefties are very much so left brain leaning with a midbrain tendency. And so they're both, well, one of my lefties is more left brain than not. And he is very logical and very mathematically inclined with creativity. And so it's very weird how, like, we're all wired very differently around here.
Interesting.
It is. Yeah. It's crazy. Okay, I was going to ask you something, and I don't remember what it was because I got distracted by psychology because it happens. Oh, we were talking about opinions and stuff. It doesn't matter. We've moved on from that. So anyway, well, I was also looking at the time going, oh my goodness, I'm sure he needs to go get his kids ready for bed because it's about that time. Because it's already like
talk with. It's so easy. Time flies every time. I mean that seriously.
I was like, that's why we scheduled this in the first place. But now it's
8:00 thinking, I didn't play a song for 45 minutes. So where'd the time go?
Seriously. So we'll just have to plan to do this again. And but do you have you're working on another book now? Yes.
Yes. And actually what will come out before the book, and this is totally unrelated, but I've been recording a ton of music too.
Nice.
So I will have an album come out early next year. There's some online. I love my music, all of it. But it's like any artist, their newest work they love the most. And so the music that's coming out is just going to be, I love it. In fact, the song I played, I recorded and it's, you can listen to the version, but that version was 15 years old now. I totally redid this song and had some symphony with it and all this stuff. Anyway, so, but yeah, so I have new music coming out that will be early next year under the artist Guy Plus. And yeah, it's plus guitar, Guy Plus Guitar. But I am writing, a new novel. I've been keeping it a little under wraps just because it is a total change. It's not in an existing series. It's going to be a standalone. It's going to be a different kind of love story, but still a very strong love story. I'll give a little bit of a tease just to you, Jen, because you're awesome.
Should we cover everybody's ears?
No, it's fine. Here. I create a playlist that I listen to as I write. And I will just tell you, I'll tell you the name of this playlist.
Okay.
It's not the name of the novel. Okay. The name of the playlist is Things My Father Taught Me.
Oh, nice.
And it's not a story about me. So when I say things my father taught me, it's not about me, right? And it's not about anybody I know. It's a complete fictional work of art. But a motivating movie for me is Field of Dreams. Sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes I watch clips of of movies just to get me emotionally to where I need to be to write a scene or to continue writing that chapter or whatever. And I can think like some of my books, it's been that the scene from The Notebook. I wrote you every day for a year as it's raining down and the kid. Oh, so anyways, another one was the Jim and Pam kiss scene from The Office, right? Casino night.
Yep.
Amazing. This one, to get myself in the mood to write, and this is a very vague thing. Like anyways, is the very end of Field of Dreams, just where the father plays baseball with his son.
Mm.
They share that moment. They know, you find out at the very end, they know who each other are. And it's that kind of feeling that I'm shooting for in this new novel. So
That's awesome and exciting.
there's no release date yet.
No release date. Got it.
It's pretty early on, but it's going great. And so, yeah, anyways, yeah, that's what I'm working on.
That's exciting. Have you worked on NaNoWriMo? Have you done any of the novel writing month goals where you're supposed to write 50,000 words in November?
In the past, I have. Yeah. I had one of my novels, The Side of Love, which I will just write here, The Side of Love. This I wrote. It's my fastest novel I've ever written. It was almost like my mind was it was zapped in and it was all that I really want to do. I wrote it in 59 days, the first draft. And what's interesting to me, Jen, is, I mean, obviously then you edit it and all that stuff.
Right.
The first draft, 59 days. And I've read this so many times after, and I keep thinking there's nothing I would change. You know what I mean? Like it just, I was just on the same wavelength as what needed to be written with this one. And most of this came about during NaNoWriMo.
Wow.
So
nice.
Can I share a little bit about this cover for you? I love all my covers. This one, the male and female are behind an umbrella. And the tagline is, does love at first sight exist when love is blind? Right? So there's something I won't spoil about standing behind an umbrella and not being able to see, but her name is Rose. And so, and I don't know if you can tell from this, it looks like a painting, right? It's kind of in that style. He is an extremely gifted painter. And so just the symbolism of this cover, I just love. So
I love when that happens, when you can just see the cover and you're just like, yes, that's it. That is
the
best.
Yeah. Anyways.
I love a good book cover. Like I do judge books by their covers, and apparently I'm not the only one. So
can I show my last one then?
Yes.
Because this is a cover I'm very proud of. I don't know how well you can see.
Yeah. That's pretty.
And it becomes a very key scene for both timelines. Because like I said, this is the touch of love. And so there's dual timelines, one back during World War II in Poland, and then the other in modern day. And this scene happens in both. And so it's so key. I love covers like that. When you see it, you're like, oh, that's a pretty cover. And then you read it and you're like, I get it now. That happens not just with my books, but with other stuff. And I just love those covers, you know?
Well, and I wish, like my book, that I literally just had the covers redone in October as like a 1-year anniversary gift to my books. Because I did the first covers and I loved my first covers because I understood them. I got them. They made sense to me. But I had this one lady comment more than once about how the cover just didn't make sense to her. And I was like, that's so weird to me because I saw the story in the cover. But anyway, I worked with a lady, a woman who she had been on the podcast, and she is an amazing illustrator and designer. And I was like, hey, let's talk about this. And so she pulled together this scene from, I don't know where she pulled it from because she hadn't read the book. And so she put the scene together on the page, and I went, that's amazing because it fits here in the story and it fits here in the story, and they're completely different characters in the story. And I was just like, this was meant to be. And I really wish I could, I'm not going to get up because I would knock over the other camera if I got up. No matter what, it's my first one, no matter what. And
is it the one, so is your new cover the one that's on your website?
It's orangey, orange
Yeah,
and red. Yep.
with this guy and the
Mhm.
couple. That's a
Yep.
beautiful cover. I
And
mean,
so she did such a great job. And so in the book, it starts out, you have your main two characters, Jess and Brian, but then things happen, and then you have two characters at the end, and they have moments. Anyway, I was just like, how did you do that? Like, how did you pull that? And so it was like it was just meant to be, and I love it. So
it's a good cover. I
yeah,
like that.
she did
Good
a great
coloring.
job. Thanks. Yes, I was proud of it. I was proud to be part of the approval process because I had nothing else to do with it.
That's the benefit of being an indie author, by the way, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yes. And I'm so excited because my book in February, the girl that's designing the cover, or we're working together on it. We haven't quite gotten there yet, which I'm really nervous about because February is not that far away. But she is in college studying graphic design, and she wants to do book covers. And I said, hey, I'll give you a shot. Let's do this. And she doesn't want to be paid for it. And I was like, obviously, we're going to have a contract and you're going to get paid for it.
Smart.
But she sent me
An attorney talking to you, very good move.
yeah, right. I was
She
like,
doesn't want to be paid for it yet.
right, exactly. And so, bless her heart, and because
That's cool.
she's just trying to be so sweet and generous, and I get that. She's a nice girl. I know her from church, but and so she sent me the first draft of it, and I was like, that's so great. Now let's work together to make it just a little bit different. But she did
Mm,
such a good job, and so I love to be able to offer that up because if you're with a traditional publisher, you can't just go pick your book cover designer and be like, hey, make me a design, like you
yeah,
don't have that freedom.
that's so cool. Huh.
That's cool. I'm very happy and excited. Anyway, okay, so where can people find you, your work, your music, and all of that?
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. So just Amazon, Kyle Shoop, Shoop. All my novels are on there, both in ebook, paperback as well. I've got two of them also on audiobook. I figured since I record music, I should also record the audiobooks. And so, yeah, just look me up on there. My website is kyleshoop.com. Instagram, I go by writer Kyle. Facebook, it's author Kyle Shoop, Shoop. And again, if anybody wants to listen to music that I write and record, thank you. It's on Spotify, all the streaming platforms under Guy Plus Guitar, and plus is the plus sign, Guy Plus Guitar. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Jen.
Absolutely. And you will have a full episode where we talk even more about your work and about just being an author in general. It comes out in the spring, and I will make sure that goes up when the video posts permanently on all the websites that are out there, because I was silly and left it sit. Unless you have that date on hand, I don't have it right in front of me when your
You
episode
said
goes live.
Valentine's Day. I'm
Yeah,
trying
it
to
was.
remember here.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
cool.
So
Thank you.
that's where it was. Absolutely. February
That's
14th.
why you're my favorite podcaster.
Oh, yay.
You're a romance author. I love it.
That's so great. Oh, and your books are on Kindle Unlimited. Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, they're
Yep.
all on Kindle Unlimited.
Yep.
So
That's huge
yeah.
because people want to know that they can find it on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh
People.
yeah, that's huge. Yeah, totally. So just again, Kyle Shoop, Shoop. That's the author. This series, the romance series, goes by the Senses of Love series. So yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Kyle, once again, thank you. And let's do this again sometime.
Happy anytime. Thank you so much, Jen.
Yes. Have a great evening.
You too. Hey, bye.